Hi, everyone. Today we have Veronica Taylor on the show. She is an actress, creative director, and model. And she's also a momdel. Is that a term?
I think we should make it one.
I saw it on Instagram. I was like, oh, is that a thing?
I guess it is. I guess I am one. I have something new to put on my resume. This is exciting.
A momdel. And I would like to make the distinction that you're a model, not an Instagram model. Those are two different things.
Yes, I am old enough that Instagram did not exist for many years as I, built my career. So yes, I am a model, not an Instagram model.
Because I see you going out on, it's like a regular job for you. You're doing catalogs. I'm sure I've seen you in like a hotel brochure. I saw you model with Chrissy Teigen.
Oh my goodness. It wasn't even a swimsuit shoot. It was actually in the beginning of time. On demand, there was a really, really silly show called Sexy and Single. And my booker was like, you should do it. It'll be fun. You get to go to Costa Correas and Mexico and like do a whole week. And it's all these girls and it's an incredible photographer and videographer. And I had a serious boyfriend at the time. And so I was like, you know what? Screw it. Love Mexico. Let's do this. Go on the audition, book it. And then it ends up being me, Chrissy Teigen, an older girlfriend of mine, Krista Highcamp, who is now an incredible makeup artist, and a couple of other girls. And we're all at Costa Correas, which is one of the most amazing resorts that you could stay at. And we're doing this shoot. And basically they interview you and they're just like, what do you look for in a man? It was basically like they're trying to bring Maxim magazine to life. It was video content before Instagram and Facebook, which was really cool. And Chrissy was lovely and funny and amazing. And I saw her years later and I reminded her and she was like, oh my God, I totally remember that trip. And I was like, we don't have to talk about it.
Okay, so back then, what were you looking for back then?
Well, like I said, I was in a serious relationship and it was with an older boyfriend. And he was great. He was really respectful and we're actually still pretty good friends. We check in on each other like 2 times a year, usually on our birthdays. But in hindsight, I think I'm going to say my age now, everybody hold your breath, as a 35-year-old woman looking back and seeing 19-year-old me, as mature as I was and, well-traveled and an old soul, like dating somebody that was 30. Now I look at that and I'm like, oh my God, right? Like what? I didn't know shit. Can I cuss on this? I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, absolutely.
I didn't know shit. And we were having a great time and he was lovely and everybody like knew us as a couple. But in hindsight, I'm just like, wow, all right, I get it. I still see it. We live in Los Angeles. You see it every day. But yeah, it was a great relationship and we parted ways because I was just, I was young.
Yeah, it's funny when now that I'm the age of the men, some of the men that I dated when I was younger, it's interesting because when I talk to people in their early 20s, it's I respect them, but it's hard to have a conversation most of the time. I almost view it as like a kid almost, or
yes.
Like I'm your aunt.
Yes, the like auntie thing, like you have these conversations on set with like younger models and stuff. I sit there and I'm just like, okay, like I feel like you feel like the older person all of a sudden. And I think just women are just more mature anyways. We know that. And I feel like being 35 and talking to a 22-year-old man or a male model or whatever, you're just like, that's cute. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So since you've been in the modeling industry for a long time, did you ever go through the phase where you dated other models?
That's a great question. I never really dated anyone seriously in the industry. I never wanted to. I always had crushes. I had guys that I worked with a lot in my earlier years. We'd go out and make out with each other and it was like fun and whatever, but I never took any of those guys seriously. I didn't want that. I also knew how I was as a model, the insecurities that go along with that, and viewing a male that's insecure was really unattractive to me, which is why I think dating older guys was something that I did because they weren't insecure. And I wasn't dating people in the industry that much because I didn't want to date somebody that was also worried about what they looked like all the time. And if you hang out with enough male models, you know that that's kind of like one of their interests.
Yes, I thought about that. I made the comment before where I was like, I don't know if I could be with someone who's more high maintenance than me in that area, that they have to pack a bigger bag than me. And if I'm getting ready way faster than you, I don't know if I can do that.
I actually dated a talent agent, and he's wonderful. Wonderful. He has great skin. He has great skin because it takes him like an hour before bed to apply every serum you could possibly imagine. And I'll never forget like seeing his beauty counter is what I would describe it as. And I was like, oh, you really care. Like there's no apricot scrub on this counter. It was like the most beautiful products. And I was like, this is why you're going to look young forever. Good for you.
Those guys are great for friends. I'm like, oh, give me some tips.
Exactly.
Give me some tips. But the one that's in the house all the time.
No. My husband gets 2 drawers in the bathroom and that's it.
All right. So before we talk about your lovely husband, can we talk about more of your pre-husband, the dating, the crazy fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
What were some of your patterns? Did you have dating patterns?
Yeah. Basically, if you were unavailable and like showed me a little bit of interest, like just enough, I loved the chase. If you were like, I'm unavailable, I was like, I am in love with you. Oh my God. And I love to torture myself. It was like this weird Virgo masochistic side of myself. And also I talk to a lot of younger girls in their 20s, and it doesn't seem to be a unique pattern by any means. You know, I don't think you know yourself well enough at that age. So you're just kind of clawing for whatever feels comforting at that moment. That was probably one of my biggest patterns, was going for people that weren't exactly available.
Okay. And was there a lot of pain associated with that? Like when there would be breakups or your needs weren't getting met?
Oh, absolutely. You know, here's the deal. And I'm not saying they were unavailable in the sense that they were like married or in other relationships. I'm talking about the guys that were like, yeah, I really like you, but I don't want to like take it to that level right now. And I'm sitting there going, I'm a really nice girl. I don't do drugs. I'm well put together. I'm fun at a dinner. Why don't you like me, right? So there was a lot of heartache in the sense that I was putting all of my eggs in one basket a lot. So I wasn't multi-dating and just was barking up the wrong tree constantly.
And at what point did you reach a point where you said, I'm done doing this?
Yeah, it was probably 2 weeks before I met my husband.
How funny.
Yeah, it was. I had reached a point, maybe it's probably like a month before I reached my husband. As we were talking about earlier, time is a very funny thing. I'd gone through 2 serious relationships, one with the older gentleman that I had mentioned, and then I had a boyfriend for about 2.5 years that previous to us to being exclusive jerked me around like that forever. He was like, I want to be with you, but like just not yet. And then finally I was like, I can't do this anymore. And of course that meant he could finally show up and do it. So we were together, and probably together for much longer than we needed to be. And then I dated 2 people after that relationship was over. And I finally woke up one day and I was like, oh my God, I'm exhausted and I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do it to myself. I don't want to do it to my girlfriends who have to hear about it. And I'm not a person that's like a serial complainer about people I'm dating. I keep, those cards pretty close to my chest, because if it does work out and I do stay with a person long term, I don't want my girlfriends to have this preconceived notion of the person. But yeah, I finally just woke up one day and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I stopped.
So you said no to those guys?
No to those guys. And I kind of just made a promise to myself to just stop looking and concentrate on myself for the first time in a really long time, and really hone in on changing what I was doing. Like I didn't want to go to nightclubs every night, and I didn't want to go out every night, and I wanted to stay home and just be with myself, which years prior was probably more terrifying than anything.
Okay, so where were you in your career when you met your husband? If you're focusing on yourself, was it a lot of it like career focused as well?
It was a little bit career focused. Getting good sleep does help if you look good. It was slightly career focused, but it was mainly, emotional and well-being focused. Why I definitely stopped. But when I met my husband in my career, I've been modeling since I was 14. So it was about 11 years into my career that I met my husband, and I was well set in my ways. And that's what I did for a living and still do for a living. And so my husband, when we met and first started dating, I think it was more exciting for him than anything because he knew people that were in the industry, but had never really dated somebody that was in the industry. So he got to see the inner workings of it. And
okay, so he's not in the industry.
No, when we met, he was a musician.
Okay.
Yeah. So talk about unavailable men.
Yeah.
I finally found one that was available. Now we're married. Yeah, we actually, do you want me to tell her how we met? Okay.
Meet cute story.
So one of my very best girlfriends, Alexis Linkletter, she was going to college at the time and she was taking a poetry class, and she knew that I loved musicians, and she's like, I have the guy for you. And I'm like, no. She's like, come on. He's playing a show at the Satellite in Silver Lake. And I'm like, I don't go to Silver Lake. So I was like, fine, whatever. And at the time, we both drove BMWs. We both had like cute blue BMWs. We pull up, I think in hers, I don't remember whose exactly. And she introduces me to the poetry teacher, who just looks like he has a gray cloud hanging over his head. You know, he's like smoking a cigarette, and he's like, whose daddy bought him the Beamer? And I was like, I look at her and I was like, absolutely not. You thought I would even have a connection to this guy? And she's like, I don't know. He's so much different in class. I'm like, yeah, because he's reading you poetry. How could you not fall in love with a teacher reading you poetry? He's pretty handsome, but like outside of class, she's like, you're right. He's kind of a dick. And so we stayed to watch the show. We hung out. And at the time, I smoked cigarettes. And I'm standing outside, and this guy walks up, and he's like, hey, do you have an extra smoke? Can I bum a cigarette? And I was like, hey, do you have a girlfriend? Do you want one? You're adorable. And he looked just like Mark Ruffalo. He has curly hair, and he's wearing this semi-worn-in T-shirt with a cat on it and like a gold Pharaoh chain. Right there, I was like, not my dude, but he's really cute. And we actually just hit it off, and we talked for 45 minutes outside of the space. And all of a sudden, this guy comes out, and he takes his hat out, and he's like, dude, what are you doing? We're all set up on stage. You need to come back in. We're about to go on. And I was like, oh. He's like, yeah, I'm playing. Do you want to stay? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, of course he's a freaking musician. Okay, yeah. And Alexis like jumps in out of nowhere, and she goes, yeah, we're going to stay. She'll stay. She'll watch you. She's going to stay and watch you. Don't worry. So we went inside, and of course I had to play it cool. So I didn't stand in the audience. I sat at like a bar stool across the room and had my, whatever I was drinking, my gin and tonic. And we ended up talking for another half hour after the show and really hit it off. And 2 days later, he called and asked me out on a date.
When you said, did you say you're adorable to him?
I was like, you're adorable. Do you have a girlfriend? Do you want one? Like, hi, I'm annoying and very blunt.
Oh, were you always like pretty confident in communicating like that?
Yes and no, but he had such a friendly vibe that there was nothing to be concerned about. I knew I could say that to him, and he would know that it was like sweet and in jest and nothing that he wasn't going to judge me for saying that.
And what do you think when you saw him on stage? Any feelings?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? He was having a blast. He was really good at what he was doing. He played lead guitar in the band, and he was just so happy up there. And it was this very confident and sweet moment where I was like, okay, I kind of like him. And Alexis like, I knew it. I knew we came here for a reason tonight.
Oh, she's a good friend.
She's great.
She also said that you guys are staying. That's a good.
Oh, she was like, I can tell you like him. And I was like, yeah, fine. You can tell.
Yeah, that's good. Good friends. I always think it's good to listen to them.
Oh, yeah. Because, especially when they've been there for a decade and they've seen you go through all the other people, and they're like, oh, no. This seems like a good person.
So is still a musician, or?
He plays music still, but no, we actually have a production studio in Chinatown called Will Heart Nod. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, so he rents it out and then...
Yeah, okay. So he rents it out to artists. We have an FX show that shoots down there. So they have like one huge hallway, and then there's like giant production stages. What is it called? It's called Gorilla Doors. Like, so they could do car commercials and things like that inside, interior. Yeah.
And you met him 10 years ago.
I did. Okay. Yeah, we went on our first date October 7th. 2010? Yeah, Yeah, it must have been 2010. Yeah.
Okay.
I can do math. I'm sorry. I was like, wait a minute.
Okay, so you met 10, 11 years ago, and you have been married around 5 years, you said.
Yeah, our 5-year anniversary will be April 9th.
And then when you guys started dating, did you have a good feeling like this is going to be the guy I'm going to be with?
Yeah, I think I actually told his parents this 4 months into us dating. He came to my house. He walked up the steps, all 4 of them, mind you. He knocked on my door. He met my roommate. He opened my car door. He had a night planned. Like everything was in place. We went to the Dresden. We saw, what are the people that performed there? Elaine and forgive me. Everyone's probably screaming at the podcast going like, this is their names. And it was great. Like the waitress actually walked up and she's like, can I ask you, are you Mark Ruffalo's little brother? And I was like, I told you you look just like him. And then we went from there to Bigfoot Lodge, which is like a really kitschy bar in Los Feliz, which was really fun. And that's where we had our first kiss, which was nice. And it was sweet. And yeah, it was a great first date.
Cute. Did he take the lead on the first kiss?
Oh, yeah. I think he like jumped into my lap. He was like, it's now or never.
That's cute.
Yeah.
And then as you got to know him, what were the qualities that showed you this guy?
My God, my husband has to be the most patient person I've ever met. He's the most patient and kind person. His friend group even, like, they value that in him. And he just has this way about him that's very confident without being overbearing.
That is a really good skill to have.
Yeah.
I feel few people have that.
It's a rarity. I mean, like, he can be a contrarian. There's moments where I'm just like, dude, no. But for the most part, he's just so sweet and so confident and handsome, of course.
Yeah. What's your marriage dynamic like? Like, what do you guys like to do together? Would you consider that you guys like best friends and you like to do everything together? Do you kind of have your own lives and careers and you come together?
We definitely have our own careers. I mean, especially right now, he goes to the office pretty much every day and I'm a stay-at-home mom unless I've booked a job. So I'm home with the baby. He's at work. And then when he comes home, we have dinner together and we usually like put Ollie to bed together. And then after Ollie goes to bed, which is at 8 p.m., lately we've been playing gin rummy. And, you know, we're not drinking because it's dry January. But next month, I'm sure we'll be back on our cocktails. And we have a little front area that we can hang out with our neighbors on so we can all be socially distant. So we love to socialize. Love to host parties. We really align with those things. For the most part, though, we do a lot, pretty much everything together.
And with Ollie, that's your son.
Yes.
Who's 17 months.
Yes.
You said. And you said that Johnny's your husband, watches him when you're working and doing things like this because he has a flexible schedule.
Yeah. I mean, he has a flexible schedule in the sense that he's probably juggling, you know, a Zoom call while Ollie's on the floor down here screaming his head off. But yeah, he's very gracious in the sense that if I need to do something, like I had a fitting before I came here and then I was doing this and he was like, yeah, I'll take over for today. Thank goodness. We're really, really lucky that that's our situation right now.
Did you know in his character that he would be a dad like this? Or did you guys have to talk about that?
No, I knew in his character the patience obviously is a huge part of parenting. Like that's one of the biggest things that you will learn when you are a parent, that patience and not, you know, wanting to scream is a huge part of it. And I knew that he would be the calm, cool, collected one and he'll probably end up being the good cop while mommy's the bad cop. So
it seems like you guys hang out with friends quite a bit. Like you have a good social life.
Now it's definitely slowed down, but yeah. Prior to the pandemic, like we're very social. And when Ollie was a small baby, we were so the couple that were like, we're not going to just hide out in our house. We're going to go out with the baby. And you know what? To anyone that's out there that's listening that has, you know, is pregnant or has a new baby, I know that it's not safe right now, but the best piece of advice I could give you is take that baby with you everywhere. Because the second they start moving, it's a different ballgame. But when they can sleep or stay in their little car seat at the dinner table and you can have them out until midnight, do I sound like a bad parent yet? It's so doable. You know, we'd go to dinner parties at friends' houses and everybody would just take turns holding the baby. And then when it was time for him to go to sleep, put him in his car seat, put a blanket over. Totally fine.
That sounds appealing to me. Like if we had kids, that's how I imagine I would want to do it. Of course, when it actually happens, you never know like how you would show up.
Exactly.
Right?
And I have friends that have babies that aren't that easy, you know, that have babies that if they took them outside, they're screaming the entire time. And it becomes, as the parent, because it's your responsibility, you become so anxious with how other people react to your baby. We haven't flown yet, obviously, because of the pandemic, but we were supposed to go to like a wedding in April or May. That's not happening anymore. But I had more anxiety about flying with him for the first time because I'm so worried about what if he cries all the way to Hawaii and people are mad. And I have other parents that are veteran parents that are like, screw them. It's a baby. They did it at one point. Their kids did it at one point. It's okay. And I'm like, all right, I'll just take some Ativan and conk myself out.
Yeah, I would, I think, be anxious as well.
Yeah.
My friend just told me, he's like, you just have to not care.
Yeah.
What other people think.
Caution to the wind and just do your thing. We have a favorite restaurant we love to go to called L&E Oyster Bar. We would take him there and the waiter was like, you guys are doing it right. Do it now. We took our kid everywhere. We still do. And it's very European. Yeah. People in Paris, believe it or not, are not hiding out in their small apartments when they have babies and never taking them to restaurants. That baby's at a restaurant. They're drinking wine. They're smoking cigarettes. Not the baby, the parents.
Yeah.
And everyone's enjoying themselves. And that's how you actually socialize your baby too, because we've actually experienced his reaction now to a lot of people. And we jokingly call it stranger danger, but you know, he doesn't see that many people. So even other little kids, he gets really shy and he, you know, comes to us and asks to be picked up because pandemic life, you know, hasn't seen anybody.
Oh, totally. I mean, I can view it from a logical sense. I mean, I'm the last person that should say anything. I feel like people who don't have kids, I think I know better. Just like zip it. But from a logical sense, what you're saying completely makes sense. And it's easy for me to say like, yeah, totally.
Every experience is different. And that's why like the unsolicited advice side of things, I'm pretty easygoing and a lot of people aren't. But like the unsolicited advice, you just have to like take it, put it in your unsolicited advice bag and carry it around for later in case it comes in handy.
I try to be mindful of that because my mom tends to just like to give advice. So I think I've inherited that from her. But I try to stop myself sometimes. Or I'll ask, you know, like, oh, do you want my opinion on this?
Yeah.
Before.
I think that's, I mean, which is gracious of you. I feel like most people are just like, here it is. Let me jam it down your throat.
Yes. I try. I can't say I always remember to do that.
Especially not with our husbands. We're just going to tell them.
Oh, of course. Of course. And I mean, it sounds like Johnny's pretty actually similar to my husband, P, in that the patience. And you said he knew who we signed up for when we got married.
He did. I mean, I don't know if he signed up for like the postpartum hormonal craziness, but that's dissipated big time. So he also dealt with that really well. And it's just so he's an empath. So he definitely understands and feels, he knows that I need to be like kid gloved at the moment or whatever it is. And he's really sweet and takes care of me and us, which is lovely.
Have you guys ever had a rough patch? I mean, over 10 years.
You know, I feel like every couple has a rough patch and we have moments where it's like, okay, this isn't good. We need a reset. But I think you asking me that question and nothing really standing out says a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I can't be like, oh, there was this moment 6 years ago where we almost broke up. Like, we've never almost broke up. We're very much in it for the long haul. And I come from a parents of divorce, or I'm a child of divorced parents where he's not. So we come from opposite sides of that. Like his parents stuck it out and my parents didn't. And I think because of those two, that combination of things, we're just like really making it work.
And then how do you guys deal with conflict? Was fighting different in the beginning versus now? Do you feel like you navigate it better now?
I think in the beginning I don't know if it was navigating it better, but I think I was just on better behavior. I have a good friend who's much older and much wiser. And he always said that the first 6 months of dating, you're not dating the person, you're dating the representative. Yeah. Plain and simple.
In most cases, yeah.
In most cases, for the first 6 months to a year, that person is on their best behavior. They're not going to show you their true craziness. And I feel like the second that we like really showed you show yourself to the person and they're still accepting, that's when you're like, okay, we can stay together.
That's when you know. That's when I felt like I knew.
Yeah. And they like handle it really well, or he handled it really well, and it was totally fine. But with our fighting, I'm guilty of just shutting down. I'm very much like a stonewaller. Yeah, I definitely get quiet and I just don't respond and I get defensive and it's not cute. It's something that I work on with myself and I talk to my therapist about a lot. And she's like, you're such a great communicator though. And, you know, you're very open with me. And I think with your husband, sometimes I just don't want to deal with it because I'm just so exhausted from, you know, being a mom and doing all these other things that like having a fight on top of that, I'm just kind of like, we'll deal with it later. I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll be over it. But I did write in our vows that we'll never go to bed angry. So I try to hold true to that because I do believe, you know, going to sleep angry at each other and letting it fester and sit is not good. I'd rather do the like stay up and talk until 2 a.m., get to the bottom of it and express ourselves and be like, now we can both sleep well, because you don't sleep well when you're fighting. There's nothing worse than tossing and turning.
And then how does he show up during conflict?
He's pretty great at communicating, and he like calls out my shit and accepts it when I call out his, and we usually resolve things very quickly.
That's really good.
Yeah.
How does he feel about, because you're a career woman, has that ever been a thing or an issue, or he loves that you're a career woman?
I don't know. I think my husband's like my biggest cheerleader after my mom. Through the pandemic, I think we've all gone through these depressions and we don't know who we are anymore and all these things have been taken away. And I finally like hit my second wall and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. This is awful. And he made me sit down and make a list. And he's like, tomorrow you're going to check off everything on the list and just get it done. And it's going to make you feel better. It's going to give you more energy. So on the list, it was get in contact with my old manager, reach out to this person, this person, this person about like new talent representation. I need to find a new commercial agent. I need to do this and this and this. And I did all of those things. Within 3 days, I re-signed up with my old manager, had 4 auditions, which, by the way, my husband from like 8:30 p.m. last night until 11:30 was putting me on tape for those. He's so supportive and just wants me to like be happy and continue to like do these things to continue my career. Because I've been acting since I was 2 years old. So it's something that I'm very passionate about and it's still in me. And I'm like, I want to do this thing and it's not crazy. We're here. Why not? Yeah, he's totally supportive.
It sounds like 2 of your favorite qualities is his patience and that he's supportive.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Like, what else is your favorite quality about him?
Oh, my God. I feel like this is a trick question because I feel like the list is going to be really long, but I'm going to edit it down. Obviously, the patience. He's very good at listening. He's a really good listener. And he likes to talk with me about my dreams. Maybe we don't say it's like, this is my dream. He's very complimentary. He comes from a really nice family. And I remember the day we got engaged and, you know, you do all the family phone calls. And I was on the phone with his mom and I said, thank you. Because of you, he's the man he is today. Because of you and Steven, he's this really nice person. I feel like nice is at the top of the list. Like if you talk to anybody that's ever had to deal with him, even if he's had to be a little bit stern, they're like, he's really nice about being an asshole. I'm like, yeah. Which makes it kind of annoying.
Yeah. No, that is a really underrated quality. Kindness.
Kindness is such a huge thing. And I feel like it's such a lost art at this point. I feel like people have lost even the desire to be kind anymore because I feel like a lot of it is self-centeredness and not having to deal with other people. And I feel like my husband, prior to having a child, has always been kind. But now because of that is even kinder, if that makes any sense. He's such a good dad.
It's like my husband as well, like that type, their personality, I could just tell.
We should get them together.
That's dad material right there. I do think Pete would be a more patient, nurturing parent than I. I mean, I do feel like I can contribute in my own ways, but out of the two of us,
we don't have time for that.
I know, it's different.
Like I grew it. What else do you want me to do?
So you had mentioned therapy, that
yes.
you go to therapy. How long have you been in therapy for?
I think I've been going to her for about a year now, year and a half on and off. I got her information through a mutual friend. She's lovely. She was affordable. She was on a sliding scale. So that was important for me because I was like, I can't afford $150 a week.
It can add up.
It adds up, especially like if you're wanting to go weekly, it really adds up. And so she's on a sliding scale, and I was at a full-time job and I was having a hard time navigating management and a couple of other issues. And then I was pregnant and I was like, I need someone to talk to besides my husband. I can only, I don't want to bore him with monotonous details all day. I'm like, that's why I pay a therapist. So,
well, it's good to have a neutral person, I think, as well.
Absolutely. Because it's like a complete outside perspective to the situation. And sometimes in therapy, do you go to therapy?
I have before,
okay.
Yeah.
So it's so funny because like they will take something you say and they're like, oh, that asshole. They have this like delivery sometimes and you're like, oh, no, it wasn't that bad. And she's like, well, I'm just saying from an outside perspective that sounds like a really aggressive way to answer this question. And I was like, it wasn't that bad. They have this take on things where you're like, wait, was it aggressive?
Right.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah. But it's always been super helpful. I actually, New Year, she had taken a couple of weeks off for the holidays. I need to re-up and get my schedule in there.
Yeah, I think depending on where you are in your life, you need different things.
Yes.
So, when you're getting advice from people, some people say like different things work for different people is what I'm saying is, therapy might be great for some people. Other people might respond better to workshops or reading books.
Yeah, I wish I could use self-help books more. I had read a few, like, the 4 Agreements and all those kinds of things when I was much younger, even like the Secret and things like that for manifesting and all that. And I appreciate them, but I think I stopped. I even went as far as, what was the book that came out in like the early 2000s? Why Men Love Bitches.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yes, but why will none of them date me for longer than 2 months? So yeah, things like that. But I guess it's like lack of time and I'm just not as interested because I kind of just know who I am now. And I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah, no, totally. That feels so good too. I think as you get older, that peace.
Yes. I was telling a girlfriend about this. She's going through the guy thing where she's like, we matched, we went on a date. And then I never heard from him again. And I was like, okay, his loss. And obviously, like, he wasn't into you. And what was the other? Like, he's just not that into you?
Yes.
Oh, my God. My mom and I would read that book. And we read it at the same time. And we were just like, genius. This is great. There's no other reason that he's not calling back. He's not that into you. He has other things going on. You're not the priority. Mm-hmm. The end. Respect that. Don't stalk him.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
But I do remember being in that space though, where I wouldn't keep it simple. I'm like,
no, the panic.
I know.
And now it's
anxiety.
I feel bad for people with social media, and you have all these ways to really know what's going on in someone's life. Before, you just had like a flip phone. You didn't know where they were and what they were doing unless you heard about it like a week later through your friends or whatever.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I would just be like torturing myself. And I'm so glad I don't have to.
Yeah.
You know how great it is? My husband and I started dating right when, I was going to say Grindr, Tinder. Tinder started and all the dating apps started. And like we were just looking at each other, we're like, all right, let's not break up. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to swipe.
Yeah, that in of itself. I usually tell people only go on it if you feel good and optimistic.
Yes.
Otherwise, it can be really depressing.
And it's like soul crushing. I was sitting next to somebody at a dinner once, and he's a handsome guy, but he's not, the guy. It's not like Brad Pitt sitting next to me. And he's kind of being a dick, and he's swiping on these girls. She's so cute. She looks like this and this. Oh, look, she's like into this. And he's like, ew, no. And I'm like, what do you mean she's so cute? And he like starts swiping for me and showing me the girls that he's clicking on. And I'm like, bro, she's not going to look like that in person. A. B. Barking up the wrong tree again. Like, no. I'm all for like reaching for the stars, but let's be a little bit more considerate.
I saw a guy swiping. I was on an airplane and he was a few rows ahead of me, but I could just see the hand. As soon as we landed, he turned it on, number one. And the way he was swiping was so fast. Like it was a deck of cards. Like, I'm like, you're not even looking at these pictures.
I feel like there's certain guys that are like, they know when they know, like it's going to be like the hottest chick that just like catches them. They're like, okay, yeah. And especially if you just landed in a city, that's why he was on there. He was like, all right, who am I going out with tonight? Who doesn't love free love? Like we have contraceptives and condoms for a reason. And I'm glad that everybody's really enjoying themselves. But like, I feel like we need to take it down a notch, especially for women. I feel like men are very capable of compartmentalizing. Women are so emotional about these things that it's like, you know, having sex for fun is great until it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's kind of like Russian roulette these days too, from what I hear.
Easier said than done. But if you're just really honest with yourself and what you want, but I mean, you also have to know yourself, because if you do just want to have casual sex, it could work.
It does work.
But if you're lying to yourself and you might get attached to that person.
Exactly. And this is why open relationships are like mind-boggling to me. Because I feel like as women, like if you're going to actually take the time to go out and go on a date with somebody or like hook up with somebody, even if it's casually, you're doing it because you have some sort of an attraction to that person. Yeah. Where dudes are like, you're hot.
Yeah.
And that's it. And they can walk away.
Totally.
And there's no attachments. And I mean, like, good for them.
I know. I always think of the polyamory because it seems like it's becoming more popular. I'm hearing about it more. I don't know. Maybe people are just talking about it more.
I feel like people are just talking about it more because it's not as taboo.
Okay. Whatever floats your boat, you know. But I just feel like it's having a relationship with yourself is already a thing, and then you share it with one other person. That's already comes with its challenges, and then you throw in another one. I'm like, damn, that would personally for me would be way too much.
It's too much work. My husband and I were talking about it the other night, and he's like, it just sounds like so much work.
Yeah.
Like it's too many feelings and too many people to consider. And I was like, exactly. You either just don't have that much going on and you have the time, I guess.
Maybe it's not as deep, but I feel like if you want to go deep.
But for women, if you're actually seeking like another partner, you're seeking somebody that you're emotionally connected with.
Yes.
Most of the time. Even if you think you're just going out for casual sex, like most women need to have that little inkling of connection.
That need met. I agree. If you can give a piece of advice for women right now who would like to find their life partner, what would that piece of advice be?
Love yourself first. That's huge because it doesn't matter how lovely your partner is. If you don't have that void filled yourself, it's not. You can't expect someone else to do that for you. Plain and simple. And it's also unfair to ask someone else to do that, to like, you know, fix you or make you feel good about A, B, and C. Your partner is your partner. It's not like another limb. Does that make sense?
Completely.
Okay.
I get it. What about if someone tends to get anxious when they go out with people? Do you have advice?
Oh my God, you're talking to somebody like the most anxiety. I used to have the worst social anxiety, and no one talked about anxiety, so I didn't know it was anxiety. I would just handshaking, like sweaty, and I'd be going out, and like this isn't even on a date. This was just going out, you know, to possibly meet someone, and I'd get nervous. I think the best thing to do, well, first of all, don't drink too much because that's never going to end well. 1 or 2 drinks gets you to the right zone.
Yeah.
I definitely think just if you're having an off night, don't go. That always helped me. You know, like if you're not like feeling yourself, like there's nothing worse than forcing yourself to go out and pretend that everything's fine. That adds to the anxiety. But I think for first dates, definitely just try to be yourself as much as possible.
Yeah.
I know that's so trite and stupid.
It's true though.
Yeah, don't think about like, oh, what's he gonna think if I order this? And just enjoy yourself. Ask to go if he hasn't made a plan, which I'm hearing most guys don't do that these days. You know, ask to go to your favorite restaurant where the waiter might know you and have some banter so you can feel at home and they're kind of a guest in your house. I feel like that's a good piece of advice. I always loved that. There was a bar on 3rd Street. I don't know if you remember it, called St. Nick's.
I feel like you've gone out way more than
I was out 8 nights a week. I was like, where can I go next? And it was like, it's a dive bar. They had a great cheeseburger, pizza, french fry situation. And if it was a second date or if like the dinner portion of the date had gone well, I would usually take guys there and the bartenders all knew me. I felt safe and they would kind of, like, this is a good one. And I took Johnny there and they liked him.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Do you prefer to kind of take the lead sometimes? Does it ever bother you if the guy didn't take enough initiative?
If I was into the guy, taking the initiative would definitely come across if he wasn't doing it. Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I definitely like a planner though. I think that's like one of my love languages. Like I like the people that plan things out and make gestures like that. And I'm not talking about like extravagance by any means. I just mean like, oh, I made this reservation and then after that we're going to go to this bar and I know you like this book or so, like they've done their research, I guess, and like paid attention when you talked.
Thoughtful.
Exactly.
Thoughtful. Okay, my last question. I think you covered some of it, but ultimately, why did you choose your husband?
Oh my goodness. I think I chose my husband because he was the best choice for me. I think after being together for, I want to say 3 years and moving in together, we, by the way, was not going to live with anybody else or live with anyone, I should say, until I was engaged because I'd never lived with a partner. And we decided to live together for a little bit before. So we would know, I think
that's a good idea.
It's a good idea. I love the romance of thinking we're going to get engaged and then we'll move in together. You might do that and then you might realize the representative was there longer than the 6 months to a year and you're living with, yeah. No, don't want to do that. So we actually got engaged almost a year to the date of me moving in. And, living together in that year, we just work really, really well together as a team. Yeah.
So do you guys ever work together for professionally? For work? Do you help each other out?
We help each other out in the sense that like if I know a client's looking for a place to shoot, like I obviously pitch our studio and I bring a lot of photographers in there and do projects for myself out of there and just try to promote the space as much as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that. What about doing like projects together, like put a piece of furniture together or something? Do you guys work well in that sense?
Yeah, we built something from IKEA and we're still married, so we're good.
It's good. Because I asked that because Pete and we support each other, but I have a hard time working because our approaches are very different.
Yeah.
So I have to learn patience because when I watch him put together that IKEA thing, I really have to.
You're doing it wrong.
I have to be in the other room and be like, I'm going to come back.
I love you. You're like, I'm going to come back and check on you. I mean, even last night, he's putting me on tape. And, I was telling you, I have like rigged up lights. And we're talking about not a professional setup. And he's he's working with me from 8:30 p.m. until 11:30 p.m.
Sweet.
Recording me, making sure the sound sounds good, making sure I look good, making sure my lines are correct. He's being the line reader. Like he's doing this whole other job that he's like, I'd rather be inside reading my book, but of course I'm going to help you because this is your dream and I want you to do it and you're actually really great at it. So let's do it. I think teamwork and I think once we had the baby, watching him become a father, I fell in love with him all over again in a completely different way.
Thank you so much.
Of
Thanks
course.
for coming on and sharing your insight. And I think it's great to have very strong, independent, capable women come in and talk about their marriages because it helped me when I was single.
Yeah.
Because, you already have the results that maybe some women are looking for. Like I have my career and stuff, but I want to meet my person. And so just hearing the stories. And it's funny because a lot of the stories have similarities in terms of like qualities and why they chose him and things like that. I think those role models are important to have. And also just to maybe hear something different from maybe what you grew up with. Like you might think like, oh, all relationships are like this.
Yeah, big time.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.